Hello everyone. So we are going to start a new topic which is known as genetic code. So, apart from that, we are going to cover up the process of translation, or you can say the protein synthesis and its inhibition. So this is the last part of the unit, and here we are going to cover the information related to the genetic code. What is genetic code? How this code it defines the synthesis, or how it controls the synthesis of protein in the human body, and different things. So let's start. So first of all, if you see, we know that this is a chromosome. It's generally found in the nucleus. So in the chromosome, generally we have this telomere. These are the ends, right? These telomeres, they are form of the DNA repeats. And from here, if you see the DNA, so generally the DNA is double stranded. So as we have already studied in our previous class, that it will starts unwinding, right? So this is a single stranded region. Here, from here the process of translation will start. So basically you see the letters A, G, T, C, or you can say A, T, G, C. It corresponds to the nucleotides in the DNA, where A stands for the adenine, G stands for the guanine, T for the thymine, and C for the cytosine. So now these codes, or you can say these letters, they are organized in codons. These are organized in the codons. So the collection of the codons, it is known as the genetic code. The collection of the codons, I repeat, the collection of the codon, it is known as the genetic code, right? Now you see there are 20 amino acids, so there must be 20 codons for synthesis of the each amino acid, right? Now you see one calculation that each codon have 3 nucleotides to impart specificity to each of the amino acid for a specific codon. So how we can illustrate this? See, one nucleotide it can have 4 combination. One nucleotide it can have 4 combination, right? 2 nucleotide it will have 64 combination. 3 nucleotide, that is the codon, it will have 64 combination, and these 64 combinations, they are used for the synthesis of 20 amino acid, right? So these are the genetic codes. So these are the 3 bases. It will code for 1 amino acid, right? Now you see here I am showing you a chart. So in this way, so see this are the code UUU. It will code for amino acid phenylalanine. UAA it will code for leucine. CUU it will again code for leucine, in this way. So here actually out of 64 combination, basically we use only 61 combination, because 3 combinations are generally regarded as a stop codon. So UAA, UAG and UGA, these 3 are actually the stop codon which don't code for any amino acid. Now the genetic code, it is defined as the genetic code is a dictionary. It consists of genetic words which are known as the codons. So each codons consists of the 3 bases, or you can say triplet, right? So there are 64 codons which we have already discussed in our previous slide, right? Out of this 64, 61 codes for the 20 amino acid. Remaining 3 are the stop codons, right? These 3 codons, they do not code for any amino acid. Now there are types, the types of codons. So first of all, the codons, they are divided into sense codon. Next it is the signal codon. So signal codon, you are going to have a start codon and a stop codon. The start codon will start the process of the protein synthesis, whereas the stop codon will stop the process of the protein synthesis, right? Now this sense codon, these are nothing but these codes for amino acid which are known as the sense codon. This sense codon, they generally code for the amino acid. Moreover, the signal codon, this signal codon actually they code for the signals during the protein synthesis. This signal may be either your start signal or stop signal. So for example, AUG, UAA, UAG, UGA, these are the signal codons. So there are actually 2 types of signal codon. One, it is the terminating codon which will stop the protein synthesis. Another one, it is the initiating codon which will start the protein synthesis. So terminating codon means nothing but, we have already shown you in the second slide, that is the UAA, UAG and UGA. These three codons are generally known as the termination codon, or they are also regarded as a nonsense codon because they always stop the process of protein synthesis, and these three are generally referred as amber, ochre and opal codons, right? The next one, it is your initiating codon. So AUG, it is regarded as the initiation codon. So it generally provides the first amino acid in all the proteins. So at the starting point, it goes for the methionine in the eukaryotes. You just remember this thing. The AUG, it codes for methionine in the eukaryotes, and this is the first amino acid. Whereas in the prokaryotes, it always codes for formyl methionine, not methionine. It codes for formyl methionine, which is also abbreviated as FMET. Now the next concept, it is the anticodon. Now what is anticodon? So this tRNA, it generally have an anticodon. Here I am showing you AGG. So anticodon is nothing but simply the base sequence of the tRNA which pairs with the codon of mRNA. Here this is the mRNA, right? This is the base of the tRNA. So which will pair with the mRNA during the translation. It is known as anticodon. Clear? The base of the tRNA, which will pair with the mRNA during the translation process, is known as the anticodon. So difference between codon and anticodon, simply the codon could be present in both DNA as well as in the RNA, right? But the anticodon, it is always present in the RNA as it is found in the tRNA. It is never seen in the DNA. Moreover, the codons, they are written in the direction of 5' to 3', whereas these anticodons, they are written in the direction of 3' to 5'. The anticodon of some tRNA molecule have to pair with more than one codon. I repeat this line one again. The anticodon of some tRNA molecule, they sometimes have to pair with more than one codon. Moreover, the codons are sequentially arranged in the nucleic acid strand, right? While anticodons, they are discretely present in the cells with amino acid attached or not. I repeat, these codons are generally sequentially arranged in the nucleic acid strands, right? This in the mRNA strand, whereas the anticodons, they are discretely present, and they are generally associated with amino acid, or sometimes they are remaining free. The next concept is that the codon, it defines the anticodon should come next with the amino acid to create a protein strand. I repeat, the codon, it defines which anticodon should come next with an amino acid to create the protein strand. It's the codon only which will control the anticodon. The anticodon, it helps in bringing a particular amino acid at its proper position during the translation. The work of the anticodon is just that it needs to bring the specific amino acid at a particular position during the process of translation. Now let's start the next concept, which is known as the translation, or you can say protein synthesis. So basically, translation in general language, translation means translating a language. Suppose English to Hindi, Hindi to Assamese, Assamese to Bengali, Bengali to Oriya, right? So the pathway of protein synthesis, it is known as translation, because in this pathway, the language of the nucleotide sequence, which is present in the mRNA, it is translated in the language of amino acid sequence. Means the nucleotide sequence will be now translated into amino acid sequence. The next concept is that the mRNA, it is translated from its 5' to 3' end. We know that, right? Producing a protein synthesized from the amino acid, or you can say amino terminal end to its carboxyl terminal end. I repeat this, the mRNA, it is always translated from the 5' end to the 3' end, which produces a protein which is synthesized from its amino terminal end to its carboxy terminal end. if we remember the structure of the amino acid, or you can say the protein. Now, what are the components which are required for the translation? So basically for translation, we need the amino acid, right? Next is we need the transfer RNA, or you can say tRNA. We need the mRNA. We need the amino acyl tRNA synthase, which is an enzyme. We need a functionally competent ribosome. We need the protein factors and source of energy. The ATP and GTP are needed as a source of energy. So let's start the protein synthesis, how it occurs in the prokaryotes. Let's start it. So in the prokaryotes, it is divided, or in the eukaryotes, it is also divided into three parts only. Initiation of the synthesis, next is the elongation, next is the termination. So what is the initiation? The initiation of protein synthesis, it involves, what it involves? Assembly of the component. The different component will come together, they will assemble. Assembly of the component of the translation system before the peptide bond formation occurs. So first step, it is the assembly. So different components will come together and they will assemble itself. For example, you see here 2 ribosomal subunits which are necessary for the synthesis. Assembly of the 2 ribosomal subunit, it is necessary. Next, we need the mRNA. We need a amino acyl tRNA specified by the codon, in the message. GTP and initiation factor that facilitate the assembly of this initiation complex. So in prokaryotes, actually we generally have 3 initiation factor, which are abbreviated as IF, IF1, IF2 and IF3, while in the eukaryotes there are at least 9 initiation factor and they are designated as small EIFs. E stands for the eukaryotes, right? Now let's see what ribosome do. So we all know that the ribosome, they generally made up of the 2 unit. One, it is known as the light subunit, which is remaining as a cap, and the other one, it is the heavy subunit. So the ribosome are large complex of the protein and RNA. They have 2 subunit. One, it is the large, the other one, it is the small, whose relative sizes are generally given in terms of their sedimentation coefficient, or you can say S value, right? The S value are determined, or sedimentation value are determined by the shape as well as by the molecular mass of this unit, right? But you should remember one thing, that their numerical value are strictly not additive. Sometimes, for example, it will remain as 40, this will remain as 60, but if we add this, it will come around 80. So the numerical value are strictly not additive. For example, see the prokaryotic subunits, they are 50S and 30S, which sum should be 80, but together their sum is 70. Now A and P site on the ribosome, this is the important part in the translation process. So what is A and what is P site? So this is the ribosome. Here you are having the A site, P site. Apart from that, you are having the E site. So basically, you see here, the ribosome has 2 binding sites for tRNA, right? So each of which extends over both the subunit, and they together they cover the neighboring codons also. So basically, you see what actually happens during the process of translation. When the translation process is going on, this A unit, the A site binds an incoming amino acyl tRNA as directed by the codon currently occupying the site. So it will accept a amino acyl tRNA. This codon specifies the next amino acid to be added to the growing chain. Means this A site only, it will decide next which tRNA will come, which amino acid is going to add it, and every time this, after addition, this gets shifted to the P site, right? Here in the P site is nothing but it is also known as the peptidyl site, because here peptide bonds are formed. The next thing is the P site. It is occupied by the peptidyl tRNA. This tRNA carries the chain of the amino acid that has already been synthesized. So every time A, it is, you just remember like that, A is the acceptor, it will accept the tRNA carrying a amino acid, and every time it will get shifted to this P site and it will remain vacant. Moreover, we have the E site. E site is also there, which is generally occupied by the empty tRNA that is about to exit the ribosome. So after every time the tRNA gives or say submit here their amino acid, they will go to the E site and afterwards they will leave the ribosome. Now transfer RNA. So this is the structure of transfer RNA. So transfer RNA here, this structure it is, or this part it is known as the anticodon part of the transfer RNA, and whereas this is the amino acid binding site, it carries the amino acid here, right? So at least one specific type of tRNA is required per amino acid. I repeat, at least one specific type of tRNA is required per amino acid. So two sites are important. Here, one it is the amino acid attachment site and the other one is the anticodon site. Now, because of their ability to carry a specific amino acid and to recognize the codons for the amino acid, the tRNA are also known as the adapter molecules. I repeat, as because they have a specific site for binding the amino acid, right? And moreover, they have a specific site for binding in the mRNA. Thus, they are known as the adapter molecule. So, initiation, how it takes place. Let's see. In the prokaryotes, the smaller ribosomal subunit, the smaller one, it will first bind to the initiation factor 3, that is also known as the IF3. So this is the 30S, here IF3 will bind, and this is the mRNA, right? Now the next step is nothing but the small subunit and the IF3 complex, it will bind to the mRNA. Now where it is going to bind? It is going to bind in a specific point with a sequence of AG GAGG, and this sequence it is known as the Sine-Dalgarno sequence, which is found in all the prokaryotic mRNA. Afterwards, the FMET means the formal methionine tRNA, which is carrying, right? Now this FMET will bind to the initiation factor 2. Here it will bind, which promotes the binding of the tRNA to the start codon. Now it is going to bind to the start codon here. The next part, it will be played by the IF2 and the FMET tRNA. Now again, you see the small subunit and IF3 complex, this one. Now it scan over the all along the mRNA until it encounters the start codon. What is the start codon? It is the AUG. Once it will get the AUG, the initiation of the translation will start. Next is that the tRNA and the IF2 complex, it will bind to the start codon. They are going to bind here, they are going to bind, right? And this complex of the small ribosome subunit IF3, initiator tRNA and IF2, it is all this together, they are known as the initiation complex. This complex, it is known as the initiation complex because from here the initiation of the translation process will start, right? Now at this point the larger ribosomal subunit, it will come and it will join here. At this point here the larger unit will come and join here, right? Now a molecule of GTP will be hydrolyzed as the energy is needed and the initiation factor is released. These initiation factor, they will just release from here IF2 and IF3, right? Now the ribosomal complex is now ready for protein synthesis. So how it is going? So this is the, I am again repeating, this is the P side and this is the A side. So now you see what will happen. Now when the ribosome is assembled, two tRNA binding sites are created. We know that these are known as the P and the A. The P stands for the peptidyl and A stands for the amino acyl. Now you see the initiator tRNA. The initiator tRNA, it is now here in the P site and the A site will be filled up by a tRNA with anticodon. It's complementary to the codon next to start. So it will now shifted here. One more tRNA will come. It will have a codon which is just complementary to this sequence, right? The next step is that the second tRNA base pair with the appropriate codon in the mRNA and an enzyme which is known as peptidyl transferase. Here it will work. Peptidyl transferase, it catalyzes the formation of the peptide bond between the two amino acid present while breaking the bond between the FMET and its tRNA. So FMET and tRNA bond is broken, the tRNA will be released from here, whereas the FMET it will remain here, and moreover this FMET it will now going to get added with the next amino acid. So here PRO it is the proline, right? So this activity is intrinsic to the 23S rRNA. You remember this, that this activity is intrinsic to the 23S rRNA found in the large subunit. Now since the rRNA it catalyzes the process, this process it is also known as the ribozyme, as the rRNA it catalyzes the whole process. Now elongation, how it is going to elongate. So at this point the whole ribosome it shifts over one codon. So the shifts is require the elongation factors and energy from the hydrolysis of the GDP. So the result of the shift is that the uncharged tRNA now that was in the P site is ejected. The uncharged tRNA that was in the P site it will be ejected, and the tRNA was in the A site it will be now shifted to the P side. So every time tRNA will come here complementary to this mRNA strand, it will add one amino acid here, and it will every time it will get shifted to the P side. From here the tRNA leaves the ribosome. Thus the tRNA is the carrier. So A site is free to accept the tRNA molecule with appropriate anticodon for the next codon of the mRNA, right? Thus the next tRNA base pair with the next codon and peptidyl transferase catalyzes the formation of the peptide bond between the new amino acid, as well as it will cut off the bond between the tRNA and the amino acid, thus leaving behind the empty tRNA out of the ribosome. Now you see once again the ribosome shifts over so that the uncharged tRNA is expelled every time, right? And the tRNA with the peptidyl, or you can say the tRNA with the peptide chain occupies the P site. This is why it is known as the peptidyl site after the shift, as it contains the tRNA with the growing peptide chain. Clear? The other site will accept the tRNA with amino acid. This site, other site means the A site, thus its name is amino acyl site. So the process of shifting and peptide bond formation it continues over and over until the termination code is received. Here until the termination code is received. So there are 3 termination code. Whenever the termination code will receive, the synthesis of the peptide it will stop. Now you see the elongation process is fairly rapid, and you see with the prokaryotic ribosome able to bind 15 amino acid to the growing polypeptide every second. This process is so fast. 15 amino acid it is added every second in the prokaryotes. The process is also relatively error free, but sometimes error occurs. See, only one mistake it is made in around 10,000 of the amino acid. For a large protein of suppose 1,000, there would be chances of one wrong. Thus you can say in every 10 polypeptides. Now termination, who is going to terminate? So we all know that the termination, we have the termination codon. Here I am showing you the UAA. Thus you can see when the termination codon enters the A side, this is the termination codon. The process of the translation it halts or it stops, and this is because here no tRNA with anticodon. Here at this no tRNA will come because the tRNA don't have this anticodon of the termination, or you can say complementary of the stop codon. Now the release factor causes the translation complex to fall apart and cleaves the polypeptide from the final tRNA. Thus the release factor will come, they will form this, or they will cleave up this protein which is made up from all the amino acid, and it will remain the free. Thus the polypeptide product is now free to function in the cell. The mRNA molecule is now available for translation again. This can be again translated. Alright. Very often, more than one ribosome will translate a single mRNA at the same time. And the thing is that the one ribosome will initiate the translation after it moves down the mRNA bit. So one ribosome will initiate the translation after it's moved a direction bit, or you can say moves down the mRNA bit. Another ribosome will initiate another, and so on. In this way, it will go on. So now you see the structure consisting of multiple ribosomes translating a single mRNA is known as polysome. I repeat, the structure which consists of multiple ribosomes translating a single mRNA. This is a single mRNA. This is a set of ribosomes. Different set of ribosomes will come. So thus this set of ribosomes, they are known as the polysome. Right? Now eventually the mRNA is degraded, and translation of this particular message will cease now. Right? Now, what is the difference between the eukaryotic translation and prokaryotic translation? Thus, in the eukaryotic translation, you see, it is very similar to that of the prokaryotic translation. But here, there are few differences are there. First of all, the eukaryotic mRNA, they don't contain this region, that is the Shine-Digalno region, or you can say sequence. Moreover, instead, the ribosomal subunit here in the eukaryotes, they recognize and binds to the 5' cap of the eukaryotic mRNA. It's the work of the ribosomal subunit here in the eukaryotes. In other words, you can say the 5' caps takes the place of the C-Delgarno sequence in the eukaryotes. The eukaryotes, they do not use the formyl methionine. Instead, they are going to use the ordinary methionine as the first amino acid. The eukaryotes, they do not have a specific initiator of tRNA, however. And lastly, the eukaryotic translation involves many protein factors than the prokaryotic translation. Because in the eukaryotic translation, we are going to have at least 10 factors. Right, but in prokaryotes we have only 3 initiation factors: IF1, IF2, and IF3. Right? Now, what are the inhibitors of the protein synthesis? So, first inhibitors, the group of drugs which are known as the tetracycline. Here, see tetracycline, doxycycline, demiclocycline, minocycline. These are the drugs which inhibits or blocks the bacterial translation by binding reversibly with the 30S subunit of the ribosome, and thus it distorts in such a way that the anticodons of the charged tRNA cannot align properly with the codons of the mRNA. So thus you can use these tetracycline drugs against the prokaryote. Right? Moreover, another drug example, puromycin. It actually structurally binds to the amino acyl tRNA. Thus it becomes so, and afterwards it becomes incorporated into the growing peptide chain, right? Thus causing the inhibition of the further elongation. Thus it cannot produce more of the protein, because once the drug it gets bind to the amino acyl tRNA, it will get incorporated into the protein sequence, or you can say amino acid sequence. The next classes of the drug, it is the chloramphenicol, which inhibits the prokaryotic peptidyl transferase. Moreover, we have the drug like clindamycin and erythromycin, which binds irreversibly to the 50S subunit of the bacterial ribosome, thus inhibit their translocation. Moreover, we have the diphtheria toxin, which inactivates the eukaryotic elongation factor, thus it prevents the translocation. And finally, there are some post-translational modification. What are the modifications which are actually happens in the amino acid after the translation? So the newly synthesized protein, it is modified to become functionally active now, right? So the different post-transcriptional modification or translational modification are as follow. First of all, trimming. Trimming means it removes the excess of the amino acid from the sequence of the amino acid. First modification of the translational modification, it is the trimming. The next one, it is the covalent alteration. How it can be done? Number one, phosphorylation can be done. This phosphorylation may activate or sometimes inactivate the protein, right? Then glycosylation can be done. What glycosylation will do? Glycosylation, it targets the protein to become a part of the plasma membrane, right? Or lysosome, or to be secreted out of the cell. This is the second modification. Then we have the hydroxylation, such as seen in the collagen, which is required for acquiring the three-dimensional structure for imparting the strength in the protein. As because the collagen, these are the one of the structural component of the cell as well as of the body, right? Then we have the gamma carboxylation, this is another one. Then isoprenylation, and finally protein degradation. So basically defective protein, if it is formed or destined for turnover, are marked for destruction by the attachment with a protein which is known as ubiquitin protein. So defective protein, if it is produced in the cell, then it will be marked for destruction, and this destruction of the defective protein is carried out by the ubiquitin protein, right? Moreover, the protein they marked in this way are degraded by the cellular components such as proteasome. This proteasome, these are the protein cleaving enzymes which are present in the cell. Thus, if your body is producing any defective protein, it will be first recognized by the ubiquitin protein. So it will get bind to the protein, then the proteasome will come, it will digest of this protein. So thank you everyone for your patience hearing. If you like the video, press the like icon. You can share this video with your classmates, and for further notification from this channel, you can subscribe my channel. Thank you once again.